Chapter 13. Pyrrhic Victory. Oshida's tank smashed through the furniture barricades set by the examination students. First, the large guns of the Escalator force were fired into them, then the tanks drove through them. On entering the streets, Oshida found that there were no girls to contest the advancement. They were empty. Oshida halted her tank in the middle of the first intersection so as not to allow herself to be blocked from one path. Andou watched from nearby with a group of examination students waiting to attack. She peeked to the other side and spotted a group of girls waiting. It was quiet still, when suddenly Andou's phone went off. Startled, she jumped, stirring the others to jump out. Girls ran from both sides of the intersection, some throwing illumination flares onto the tanks, while others utilized what they had taken from the girls in the sewer to attack the treads of the foremost tank. The tank being Oshida's. Within seconds of the attack, the tank was disabled, and once the rest of the tank commanders understood what had happened, they began exiting their tanks to engage hand-to-hand. Flashbangs, smoke, tear gas, the whole street erupted into chaos. Andou looked around to see examination students and escalator students clashing viciously. Fist to fist, arms to arms, the girls brawled in the street. And then she spotted her. Oshida. Oshida climbed dazed out of the tank that she was in, grabbing onto her head as she removed her riot helmet. She jumped down and leaned against her tank, not noticing as Andou approached her. "Hey!" shouted Andou. Oshida looked up and scowled. "So, you finally show your face, huh?" "Yeah. And you finally are here before me without your crew," replied Andou. "Come to roll on our resistance to your tyranny?" "Tyranny? This is the revolution you desire. We are victors. We are the law. You girls take over half the ship, attack our girls, destroy our tanks, and expect that we sit idly by? And you think you're the victims, don't you? We destroyed tanks that you used on our demonstration. We secured our side of the ship from your attacks. We only fought justly," yelled Andou. "And what about the girls in the sewer? Did they attack you? I never heard back from them. I can only imagine that you had some hand in that," prodded Oshida. Andou said nothing and tried pushing the idea from her mind. "Yeah, go on. Deny it to yourself. Justify it as you will in your puny little brain." "You deserve it!" spat Andou as she fought tears while trying to reason with having to fight her old friend. "What are you gonna do? Hit me?" asked Oshida as she got up from her tank. She was still dressed in riot gear, and Andou knew that she would be at a disadvantage. "Maybe I should," replied Andou, raising her fists. Oshida did the same and moved towards Andou. A swift punch from Oshida grazed Andou's arm, to which Andou grabbed onto Oshida and pulled her in, head-butting her. The two staggered back, but Andou got her footing back first, as Oshida was already dazed from being jostled in the tank, and now being struck in the head. Andou rushed forward and struck Oshida, causing her to fall back even more. Oshida grabbed Andou by the uniform and pulled her down with her, and the two struggled for the upper hand. Oshida drew her truncheon from under Andou and struck Andou in the ribs, causing her to cry out in pain and wince. Andou took the implement from Oshida and tossed it aside before punching Oshida a few times in the face, knocking Oshida's head into the street below them. Oshida fell almost limp under Andou and writhed weakly in pain, to which Andou sat back, horrified at what she had done. Blood from Oshida's lip covered her fists, nauseating Andou. She looked up and spotted Fontaine fighting with an escalator girl. Suddenly, another ran up behind her and struck her with a truncheon in the leg, causing Fontaine to fall down. The girl who ran up held Fontaine down, and the two quickly beat her into submission, to which Andou screamed. A sudden blow to her liver knocked Andou off of Oshida, stunning Andou in pain. She looked up and spotted a beaten Oshida wielding her truncheon, as she held it above her shoulder. Andou tried to get away, but Oshida struck Andou's leg hard, which let out a dull thud. Andou screamed as the truncheon set fire up her leg and her side, tears immediately streaming down Andou's face, as she felt her breath be stolen from her, as she again writhed. Oshida lifted her truncheon once more and struck the leg again, to which Andou sobbed and rolled onto her back to see Oshida raise her truncheon a third time over her other leg, causing Andou to beg. Oshida, please, stop! I beg you, don't! When suddenly, Oshida looked back to her fellow escalators who were retreating. Oshida, gasped Andou as her old friend turned away from her. Their eyes met, and for the first time in a while, even through all the smoke and tear gas, the two could clearly see emotions in the other's eyes. There was no anger, no hatred, but deep regret as Oshida left, running in the direction of her peers. Her swollen eye was burned into Andou's mind, and Andou's tear-stained face haunted Oshida, even as she ran. "Boss!" yelled someone behind Andou. "Boss, are you all right?" asked Marseille as she reached Andou's side. "Holy A, man," remarked Marseille. Andou looked down to her leg and gasped as she spotted a crimson stain soaking her socks and through the gaiters that she'd put over her legs. She then looked over to Fontaine. Andou rolled over and began crawling to Fontaine, who laid motionless on the ground, along with others. "Boss, wait," said Marseille as she realized what Andou was doing. She picked Andou up and helped her move to Fontaine. Even through the pain, the only thing on Andou's mind was her friends. When they reached Fontaine, Andou collapsed and grabbed onto her, pulling herself close. Fontaine was still breathing. She was just knocked out. Andou grabbed her and sobbed into her friend's jacket. As her eyes became wet, they burned with CS gas that floated around them. But nonetheless, she cried anyway. She squeezed hard Fontaine's body, but refused to let it go as the world around her went black, and all the noise became one loud tone. Oshida listened to the voicemail Marie had left her in the battle, as she sat in the back of an APC alone. She felt tears roll down her face. She and Andou were still friends. At least, before this had happened, they were. The two had beaten each other that night. They had certainly gone too far. Oshida wondered where everything had gone so wrong. She wondered if she could ever be forgiven. If she could ever forgive herself. When Andou woke, she was in a cot beside Fontaine, who was in one just like hers. Andou looked around and saw nobody around her, besides others laying in cots asleep. She sat up and began climbing out of bed when she felt a sharp pain shoot up her leg. Andou winced, nearly falling over as she moved quickly to grab it. On doing so, she found her leg to be wrapped in a cast. Andou grit her teeth and carried herself by the bed rails, then the nightstand beside her cot, and finally into a chair beside Fontaine. Andou reached a hand over and placed it on Fontaine. Her fingers gently ran over Fontaine's face, brushing her sky-blue hair to reveal a large bandage on her forehead. "Mama?" whispered Fontaine as she stirred. "Hey, kid," whispered Andou. "Andou," replied Fontaine, rolling over before letting out a gasp of pain. "Easy, kid. You're hurt," said Andou. Fontaine looked down to Andou's leg and stated, "You are too." "Maybe, but you were worse when I found you. This girl's got you good, huh?" mused Andou, trying to play up her strength for Fontaine. Fontaine nodded, to which Andou stated, "Me too." A few tears made their way to Andou's tear ducts, but she held back. "Andou?" asked Fontaine. "Yeah?" croaked Andou. "What comes next?" whispered Fontaine. I don't know, kid. I really don't know," replied Andou. Fontaine frowned, her eyes beginning to water as well. "Hey, come on, don't cry, man. Be brave. You're a tough girl," said Andou, wrapping her arms around Fontaine. A noise at the door stirred Andou. "Hey, move over," said Andou as she had moved too far from her own bed to climb back in before those at the door would come into the room. Andou bit hard and climbed into bed with Fontaine before pulling a cover over them, pain once more shooting up her side. "Looks like they're all still resting," said one of the voices. "Damn it. We could use some help out there. But if they're all still resting, I guess we'll just have to make do with our forces that we can muster," replied the second girl. "You don't think that they'll send another tank column, do you?" asked the first girl. "They don't have to," said the second. They've started authorized use of rubber bullets on us. Flash shells, smoke cans. They're bringing everything up before live ammo. When will the violence stop? Sighed the first girl. Hey, you two. Get topside. They're rolling in the second wave to the hospital, yelled a third voice. The door to the infirmary closed and the group left, leaving Andou's attention to return to Fontaine and herself. Andou closed her eyes and held Fontaine tight. Was all of this her fault? She was meant to be a mentor for Fontaine. She was supposed to show her what kind of woman to strive to be. And now she could only hope that Fontaine would strive not to be like her. That is, if she would even get a chance at schooling after this fight came to an end. Whatever comes, kid, you'll be all right. I'll make sure of it, promised Andou as she began to cry. I swear I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. I promise.